etiquette rules, that's the wrong word, etiquette around how we're going to run today's meeting. And then I'll pass to Anne, who will go through some apologies, and then we'll also do some introductions, because there's a few faces here that I don't recognise because I wasn't in November's meeting, which Beth very kindly chaired for me. So Emily, I'm going to pass over to you.
Great, thank you, Stephen. So well done everyone for making it into the meeting. I know there's some people who haven't used Teams before, so I thought I would very quickly just give you a quick run through of how it works. What you'll see is if you sort of wiggle your mouse around, you get this grey bar that appears in the bottom half of your screen that's got various icons on it. The one on the far left is a video camera icon, and that's where you can turn your video on and off if you just by clicking on that. It's up to you whether to have your video on, but I think it's quite nice to be able to see people, but obviously if you prefer not to, that's absolutely fine. The next one along is a microphone icon, and if you click that, you can mute yourself. And what we find, particularly with meetings where there's quite a few people, it generally works best if people have their microphone muted unless they're actually speaking, because then we don't get background noise and echoing. Some of these icons you don't need to worry about. If you would like to say something in the meeting and someone else is talking at that moment, you can click on, there's a picture of a hand, and that will alert us to the fact that you would like to speak. The other way you can contribute is by, there's a little picture next to the hand of a speech bubble. And if you click on that, it brings up a chat column on the right of your screen, and you can type messages in the chat. The other thing you might want to do is, I can see Beth has a very jazzy background going on there. You can choose a background or just blur your real background. And you do that by clicking on, there's 3 dots in the middle of that bar where it says more actions. And if you click on that, one of the options says show background effects. And if you click where it says show background effects, you have the option to choose a background. And you just choose your background and click apply, and then that background will be seen. I think that's basically it. The other thing I just wanted to remind people of is that because this is a public meeting, we have to webcast the meeting, which basically means it's being streamed on YouTube. So obviously, I think it's very, very unlikely that anyone will be watching that live stream, but they might be, and obviously we won't know who they are. So if we have any confidential matters to discuss, what we can do is Anne will make a note and we'll defer that matter to the end of the meeting, and we can say, the rules say we have to say we're now going into part 2, which means the live stream will be turned off, and then only us who are in this meeting will hear what's being said. So I don't think we usually discuss confidential matters at Sacre meetings, but an example might be for, if you had a concern about a particular school and you wanted to mention the name of that school, obviously it wouldn't be appropriate to do that in a public way. So that would be the sort of thing that we'd put into part 2 when we stop the streaming. So yeah, so as a reminder, just if you could mute your microphone unless you want to speak, and if you want to speak, either click on the hand or write something in the chat box. Has anyone got any questions about anything sort of technical?
Emily, where is the raise hand function? Sorry.
Okay, so if you wiggle your mouse around, you get this grey bar coming up in the bottom half of the screen, and one of the icons is a picture of a hand. Don't know if you can. It may be possible that not everyone gets the same functions.
Emily, you're frozen. We didn't hear all of it.
Okay, sorry about that. So one of the pictures on your taskbar is a picture of a hand. If you can't see that,
just put your hand up.
I'll wave.
You can wave, or you could use the chat box and just say, if you just type hello in the chat box, we'll know that you want to speak.
I'll also, throughout the meeting, keep an eye on people's microphones because I can see everyone's. And if you unmute yourself, then I know you have something to say, and then I'll direct that. So, because I can't also see the hand icon either, and I can't see Beth. I can't get a Jazzy background like you either on my screen. So, so if everybody does, please just mute their mics, and then if you unmute it, then I know that you do need to talk throughout the meeting.
Thanks, Stephen.
Emily, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. Only just to say that Anne and I had a quick discussion a few minutes ago, and we were just saying that when Anne reads out the apologies, perhaps we could do a little thing where she reads out everyone's name and we say hello, and that gives everyone a chance to practice unmuting themselves and saying hello as well as introducing everyone, if that's all right, Stephen. Yeah,
no, that's a really good idea. And like I said, there's a couple of new faces that would be good for me to say hello to. Okay, so Anne, we're going to pass over to you for apologies, and then we'll do introductions.
Well, I've had 3 apologies. Sukdev Bansal, Michael Freeman, and Louisa Gurney. So if I start reading out the names, what I'll do. Oh, Sal wants to say something.
Yeah, just briefly, if I could also give Carol Camis's apologies as well, please.
Oh, right, okay. I don't think I'd realised she was going to be coming. I'd seen her name on the list, but I wasn't sure. Okay, thanks, Sal. I'll go down the names that I can see of who's here. I think they're in alphabetical order. And then if you just sort of reply, then people who don't know the members will be able to see. So there's Angela. Oh, I'm Anne Coffey, by the way. I'm the clerk. There's Angela Hill. She's the RE advisor.
Hello. I am. Yeah.
Right. I can't see you, but I think that's because we've only got room for 9 pictures. Anju Sharma.
Yes, I'm here.
Beth Rowland is Beth's vice chair.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Now we have somebody called Callum here, but I don't think he'll want to say hello. He's actually doing the webcasting, so he's an IT guy. Then we've got Charlotte McKenna. She's her head teacher.
Oh, hello. No, I'm not important enough to be a head teacher. Just
I beg your pardon, Charlotte. I'm getting you muddled up with somebody else. We've got Christine.
Charlotte, I didn't meet you the last day because I was at the meeting. So can you just, what group are you, what are you representing?
So I am the RE coordinator for my school, which is in Wokingham. And we didn't have a representative for Sacre or anything like that. And we're very much trying to develop the RE curriculum. So my head suggested it might be useful for me to come along.
So Charlotte's just attending as a guest, aren't you, Charlotte, rather than being a member of the Sacre?
Fine. Well, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
Christine Morgan. Are you there, Christine? She was here.
I am here. Yep.
Oh, yeah. Then we've got Graham. I can see Graham. He's a councillor.
Good evening. I have to give apologies in advance that I'll have to leave the meeting at 7:25 to go to another council meeting.
Okay.
Good to see your shiny faces.
Now, Julie Easton, are you here, Julie?
Hello, yes, I am.
Great. Linda Galpin.
Hi, everybody.
Lisa Cornwell. Reverend Lisa Cornwell.
Yes, I'm here.
Catherine Jinkerson.
Hi, yeah, I'm here.
And Sal, we've said hello to already in the middle there.
Hello, everybody. South Way Children's Services.
So I've got somebody here I've never heard of. Shashank Garg. Somebody from outside the organisation. What do I do about that, Emily?
Sorry, what was the name, Anne?
Shashank, Shashank.
Hi, Shashank. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm wondering if it's a friend of Shahid's.
Possibly.
It's a friend of mine.
Sorry?
It's a friend of mine. I know Shashank, but don't know why he's here, because he's nothing to do with. Well, he's got a son at school, but he isn't to do with.
David.
Yes.
Yes. Sorry, you weren't showing before.
Sorry, I was late because my mother's had a fall, so I was.
No, that's no problem. It's just that I wasn't.
David, it says Shashank Garg on you.
Yes, your name's coming up as Shashank.
Oh, that's because I'm using his, so that's why. Sorry.
That's okay. Just caused a bit of confusion.
Totally.
So you're Councillor David Hare, just for the people anyone who might not know who you are.
Okay, thank you.
Shira Solomons. Can't see.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, lovely. And we've got Stephen.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
Nice to
Stephen's the chair. David, we've just said hello to. You're on twice, David. You're here as yourself as well. I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's all the people. That's all the participants I've got listed down the side anyway.
And shall I just briefly say for people who don't know what I'm doing here, because normally I wouldn't attend Sacre meetings. I'm Emily Wadilove. I work for Wokingham Borough Council.
My apologies.
My role is to support the Sacre. But usually I do that through liaising with Angela, our RE advisor, and she is sort of our representative on the Sacre and the link with the local authority. But I thought I would attend this evening, as it's our first virtual meeting, just to support the kind of technical aspects and obviously contribute if there's anything helpful I can contribute. So it's really good to see everyone.
Right. So I think I hand back to Stephen now.
Okay, thank you. Beth, you're going to have to help me out a little bit because I wasn't in the November meeting, so we'll have to do a bit of a tag team. Beth, you're muted.
I said they won't notice. There's nothing to worry about.
Okay.
I probably should be muted.
And before we begin properly, I just want to say thank you everyone for March. I know we cancelled at the very last minute, but I do think it was the right thing to do. And I apologise for the short notice, but given the situation we're in, people shielding, and just those deaths and people catching the virus going up and up and up, Beth and I took the decision just to keep everyone safe. But thank you everyone for your cooperation around that. So the November meeting was the last time we actually met. I wasn't there, but Beth very kindly chaired it for me. And I'm just looking through the agenda now and the minutes and the matters arising. If we go through the matters arising and then we can look at the minutes. So first of all, it says Anne, 3A, Anne to liaise with Emily regarding Sacre members visiting schools to observe lessons. Anne?
Yes, well, Emily and I did have a chat about it, and I actually... I got in touch with, I think there were two people who were willing to visit primary schools and two schools who were willing to have them. I'm sorry, I can't remember who they were now.
Steen and Linda, I think, who volunteered to attend to visit primary schools. Yeah.
Yes, and you sent me All Saints contact, but it came just before I went away, and then there was lockdown, so I haven't actually contacted her, but I will do.
And Christine, that's totally fine. Like, this is such a bizarre and strange situation that we're all going through at the moment. So it's something that I will pick up in November if we're back to normal, and if not, then we can look at it later down the line as well. Yeah. Thank you for that.
And sorry, Stephen, there were two secondary visits that were talked about as well. I think, as I understand it from talking to Anne, Shahid was interested or offered to look into RE provision at Bournemouth, where he's a governor. Mm-hmm. And I think David was interested in visiting Maiden Early. And we've been in touch, I think, through Anne with both of those people to suggest that if they have contacts at the school, the easiest thing is just for them to arrange those visits themselves. Yeah. So we've just left it to them to move forward with that.
Okay, thank you. 3B, Catherine, to review Crossing the Bridges regarding monitoring schools. Catherine, I don't know if you have an update for us on that.
Again, kind of in that period, quite difficult up to March getting hold of people. It takes quite a lot of perseverance in contacting places of worship, and then lockdown. So again, I know there were quite a lot of visits. So for instance, the Baptist Church in Wokingham do their yearly Easter walk through the Easter story with year sixes, and should have had 8 schools from Wokingham, year sixes, eight schools, all year sixes, over a period of 4 days, and they had to cancel it at about 3 days notice and just didn't feel it was safe enough. It was right just before lockdown. So there's kind of, again, it's that difficult period of time, I'm afraid, but
Again, I think a lot of the projects and things that we're thinking about will be things that we'll be mindful of, but they have to just be on the back burner until we kind of go to some sense of normal, especially given what we're looking at is not something, I think RS is not something you can do from a distance. I think it's core, it's about people.
I think there's possible future opportunities though. Just very briefly, I created a document for our school to use in 4 different areas: prayer, worship, community and celebration, and as a general online resource for our primary school to consider what it might look like for a place of worship to investigate those areas. So for instance, prayer. As a child stuck at home, are you still able to communicate with family and friends? How do you do that and you can't see them? So kind of trying to get them to understand communication with an unseen a relationship. So I've kind of paired up lots of those, and I'd kind of like to, at some point in the future, possibly link up with places of worship, because I think there is now a new wealth of learning that we could open up that gives children a better understanding, possibly.
Could be worth some of the stuff that you're talking about there, Catherine, possibly sharing some of that with and then linking up that with the primary network meetings, because actually what you've done there sounds potentially quite powerful, and the idea of getting children to think about communicating and still thinking about a family even though they can't see them, and then linking that to the idea that they can't.
And it's things like, we did things like community. Are you part of a football team but you can't play with them? So have you ditched the football team? Have you stopped playing for them? No, you're still part of that, but you're waiting it. So, for them to understand that a group of people in a faith community, because the buildings are closed, their faith will continue in these different aspects. So kind of those, which I think has been quite helpful for our school to look at, and for teachers to use as well, actually. So I'm happy to share that document. It needs there's a lot that could be done to it, but I'm happy to share the basics with it,
If you wouldn't mind, that would be great. And if, like I said, we share that with Angela, and then Angela, if that's possibly something to be explored a little bit further at primary network meetings as and when they happen. Anne, can we just minute our thanks for Catherine for that? Thank you. Next one, Catherine, is again, it's members to share venues for Real People, Real Faith projects.
There were 2 of those filming opportunities. I sadly couldn't get to either. We had school meetings both days. I did contact Anne Andrews on both of those occasions, kind of giving apologies and asking for details of the people and the places of venues, but I've not had anything back. So I have no firm contacts for those at all. I'll have to just keep chasing, which is a bit frustrating.
Anne was furloughed, so that could be part of the reason why she hasn't been. And she's only recently been taken off furlough. So, and I when I spoke to her, I know she's got gazillions of emails to get through. So maybe leave it a couple of weeks. If you don't get anything back from her, let Beth or I or Angela know, and we can get in contact with her for you.
Lovely. Okay.
Item 3D, Emily, you've already gone through that. Shahid to investigate RE teaching in secondary schools. 3E, Angela, and to raise Emily the idea of approaching secondary schools regarding collective worship.
Yes.
Or Emily.
We had some discussion about that, Angela and myself, and I think Stephen and Beth were copied in as well. And we were just saying we haven't actually moved forward with that, because we were saying that we would actually welcome a bit more information from the Sacre as to exactly what information they're thinking they would like to gather from secondary schools. And we wanted to make sure we were clear about what the sort of the purpose of collecting the information would be, and what the Sacre was thinking they might do with the information. And we had a bit of discussion wondering about whether, if the aim is to improve the practice of our schools in terms of collective worship, we wondered if another way of going about it would be to seek out examples of good practice and to share those, rather than asking schools to tell us, what are you doing about collective worship, which they might feel is a bit as if we're sort of looking for where schools aren't doing what they should be, and they might be reluctant to answer that question. If we frame it in terms of we're looking for examples of good practice, I mean, it's easier with primary schools, of course, because we have the network meetings. So Angela could perhaps have a discussion there about what good practice is going on in primary schools. But yeah, we just sort of thought it would be helpful to have a bit more discussion about what was the Sacre's aim in collecting this information, and so we know how to go about actioning what you would like us to do. So I don't know if anyone's got any thoughts on that.
Perhaps maybe something for, go on, sorry, Beth.
I think one of our aims was to have a look at how many schools are actually doing a daily act of worship, or even any sort of act of worship at all, particularly in secondary schools. I know that there are quite a lot of primary schools that don't cover assemblies in that way, and I think we wanted to have a look at what secondaries were doing too.
Okay. So, I mean, one way we could go about that, probably the best way, is through the Secondary Federation. And Julian Bushell, who manages the Federation, has been really helpful to the Sacre recently. So we'd need to think about exactly what, if we're going to put together some kind of survey or questionnaire, we'd need to think about what those questions are. So maybe if that's the approach that the Sacre would like, maybe we could liaise with Stephen and Beth outside the meeting and come up with some questions, if that sounds like a good way forward.
Can we do that and come back to the next meeting, because schools are not going to be interested in next term if they're back at all, and so rather than put it on hold, we could work on it and then be more prepared to go into schools, possibly in spring term. Well, depending on what the virus does.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I was thinking of, in line with what Catherine was saying, it would be quite interesting to find out what schools are doing in terms of collective worship while all the children aren't in school. And I know some schools are doing video assemblies and things like that. And again, in the spirit of sharing good practice, it might be interesting to find out about that. But of course, we do have to be mindful, Beth, of all the pressures that schools are under, as you say, and think about the timing and how we contact them.
I think my gut is, I think, Beth, I think you're right in that we put together maybe some questions, and then maybe when schools are back, in particular if we're talking about secondary schools, we then maybe put our questionnaire out there, because I just know from a secondary teaching perspective, if I got a survey about collective worship at the moment, it'd be the last thing on my mind at the moment. My thoughts are very much with my year 10s and my year 12s, and the government has currently said there's not going to be any concessions for children who are doing lots of home learning at the moment. So I think that's where a lot of people's priorities are going to be. But I agree, I don't think we should totally forget it. I think maybe Angela, Emily, Beth and myself come up with some questions that we want to find out, share that with yourselves as members of the Sacre, and then as and when schools are back to whatever normality they are, then maybe send it out, and then we can feed back next spring or summer if that's what the virus does with that information. I mean, if that's a plan moving forward,
Thank you, Stephen. I'm just looking at the hand. I don't know if you can see when people have raised their hands, but Sal and Catherine have both got.
Yeah.
I can't see hands, so Emily and Angela, you're going to have to. Emily and Anne, sorry, you're going to have to.
Yeah, sorry. Sal, I think, was first to put.
I think Catherine was before me.
All right. Okay.
Oh, go on then. Yeah, I was kind of really to agree with Emily. Really, I mean, currently being in a primary school. We've got a weekly assembly, a virtual one from the head, but actually within classes, we are really kind of looking at the recovery curriculum we've put in place. So bearing in mind children have experienced a lot possibly that, you know, we're kind of unpacking. So there is a place for space, we think, very much in schools. I know there's a lot of emphasis on, there's a lot of learning that's being missed, and that is a worry, but actually we're kind of focusing on sort of reflection, mindfulness, space to be in the current climate, you know, this whole big transition back into education. So to kind of get the best out of our pupils to actually have that space. So I don't think it is the right time to start surveying and questioning, but I think there is a place for encouraging schools to make sure there is space in their day for that kind of quiet reflection and how we are and kind of, you know, that sort of thing.
And I think that's a really nice idea, and I definitely agree with it. How would you go about doing it would be my question.
It's very small things. I mean, so through the day, we might have an assembly, but we might have a reflection through the day. It's very much about feelings and emotions and sharing where we're at and how we are. So you could argue it's kind of not necessarily a collective piece of worship, but actually space to be, to kind of sharing and expressing together. So you could argue it's more PSHE, but I think it's really important to make sure that those children are expressing kind of what they've experienced, and then within that we're kind of facilitating discussion, and obviously they are bringing in their experiences from different home backgrounds, which does include faith, no faith. So I think it's very important to be listening, which kind of gives almost a better opportunity than 300 children sitting in a school hall packed in as well. It's just interesting how it's developing. So for instance, in our class, we are creating a paper chain, and every day we add a link. Because we can't physically touch each other, we're talking about how that feels, but we can actually join our feelings and emotions together. So on the link each day, they're expressing how they feel, they're sharing with each other what that might look like, and kind of celebrating together, supporting each other, and then we join the links together. It's a very simple thing. You could say, no, there's no particular religious element to that, unless a child wants to bring that in.
Okay. And I think all of that sounds wonderful. I just wondered, my question was more, looking at how do you disseminate all of that to the primary schools and the secondary schools? And whilst you were saying all of that, I was thinking again, maybe that's something that Angela, it could be within the network meeting, just sort of saying as an item, just being mindful that the RS coordinators are doing what sort of Catherine was talking about in terms of like getting children to reflect upon how they're feeling, talk about emotions. If they want to bring in like the religious element of things as well, they can. So yeah, possibly something for the network meetings as well.
Sal's still waiting to speak, I think.
Chair, if I may, I just wanted to, it's a good job that Catherine went first, because she kind of stole a bit of my thunder, in as much as I absolutely agree. And I was thinking that upon return, so into the autumn term, actually the emotional, spiritual and mental well-being of children is going to be absolutely critical as they do begin to return to school in many more numbers. And actually, I think there's going to be a greater need for that type of support that Catherine was talking about than probably the academic curriculum per se. We will have lots and lots of, as you all very well know, the numbers of children that have not seen their friends or their teachers for such a long time, that may have suffered bereavements during that period, that may have seen family members ill, that may still be incredibly anxious about return to populated environments, both as a child and in terms of their parents. So I think that whole idea around how do you support children to be mindful, to explore their feelings and understand what that means to them so that they can see themselves in whatever learning they're going back to is going to be incredibly important. And I think even if it's a dissemination of the message that schools need to be starting to consider that in their return plans, or if in their planning for September and beyond, and within all that, like I say, where is the emotional, spiritual and mental well-being context that they're taking into account in terms of their planning? In terms of dissemination of those messages, I think you're absolutely right in terms of the networks. And again, we have daily contact with all of the head teachers across all phases of education that we can be promoting those sorts of messages through on behalf of Sacre as well, if that's helpful.
Okay, thank you. Emily, I did see your hand up. I'll come to you in a second. And I agree with both Catherine and Sal with what you said. I'm also mindful in terms of the Sacre remit. I've just got to be mindful how much of what we're saying is actually within our remit as well. And I agree, the emotional well-being of children is the number one priority, but some of what we're discussing is not necessarily within our remit. Talking about sort of bringing them together, collective worship, the reflectiveness, 100% that's within our remit. The syllabus is within our remit, and ensuring that sort of like RS is provided is within our remit. Going down this route of this, we've got to do this emotional support or that mental well-being and stuff, is not necessarily a Sacre remit, if I'm being totally honest. But I think it's something we can possibly add within network meetings and share with schools to be mindful. Emily?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Stephen, really just adding to what Sal says, that obviously Christine's shared some really great ideas with us, and Julie's typing some ideas in the chat about what her school is doing. So I was just thinking that even if it's not under the remit of the Sacre, we don't have to mention Sacre necessarily, but we have various avenues through which we can share good practice, like our education newsletter that goes out once a week, and the roundtable discussions we're having with Wokingham schools on different topics, including transitioning back into school. So it would be great if we can share some of the practice that's happening in schools.
So can I, Beth, I did see your hand up and I'll come to you in a second. So just as a couple of action points. So first of all, as Emily has said, there is some great ideas, and you were talking about like the recovery curriculum is fantastic. If you have ideas or suggestions, or you have like a route that we can offer support, then could you share that with Anne and Emily so that it can go into the education news? That's the first thing. And then secondly, Angela, if you don't mind, whenever you do have your network meeting, just maybe have a bit of an agenda item on recovery curriculum and how possibly the RS curriculum can support that, if that makes sense. Like, even if we have to deviate a little bit from the locally agreed syllabus, I don't necessarily have an issue with Wokingham schools doing that, and I'm sure we all agree, like, if it supports our young people. Beth?
You sent your thunder over here. That wasn't what I was going to say, though. Can I make a plea for governing bodies as well? I sit on 2 governing bodies, and I'm a member at an academy. And I know that where I chair a governing body, we've talked about the support that children will need that's not educational when they eventually come back into school. And I think it might be helpful to keep chairman of governors in the loop of what we're doing, so that governing bodies know how to support schools. And if they haven't thought about it, and I'm sure they all have, know that there's something there that they can go to. I'm sure it'll be talked about in heads meetings as too, Sal, won't it?
Oh, sorry, yes, it will.
Beth, when you say support, what are you talking about, sort of the suggestions and the ideas that we're coming up with?
Yes, because lots of governors won't have experience of doing that, and this is an entirely new thing for all of us. And I think any suggestions that come through, and the authority have been quite good in keeping governors in the loop so far, because we need to stand strong for the children to help them get over what they've gone through during this time, whether it's hunger, whether it's missing their friends, whether it's being without any equipment to do the work on, or loneliness, or for some of them it'll be things far worse than that. Mm-hmm. We need to get them into a good place where they can begin to learn before we can teach them in lots of ways.
Okay, so Anne, I don't want to create additional work for you, but do you mind collating the suggestions?
Yes, no problem at all. If people email me.
If that's okay, if everybody doesn't mind, like email and suggestions. So whether it's like Catherine, like I really love your paper chain idea.
Yeah.
I'll say goodbye to them. I'll come back to in a second. Sorry, my little one's about to go to bed in a second. Okay. But like sort of Catherine, your ideas, so that could be one that could be sent to Anne. Then if we collate them all, so Angela, if they get shared at network meetings, and then Emily, if they get shared through education news, and then any kind of like head teachers forum, you can just say these are just suggestions that we as a Sacre have come up with. And I might just write like something that people feel they need to pause the syllabus, or they need to change bits within the syllabus to accommodate discussing some of the things that you've discussed in terms of like children experiencing things like death, hunger, not having access to resources and stuff. Then I'm sure that we can find somewhere in the syllabus to make that work. I'm
sure Linda will have come up with some things as well. She won't have been twiddling her thumbs for several weeks.
Yeah, please do, like I said, just share all those ideas with Anne over the coming weeks, and then we can, once we get all of it together, then we can send it out to members, and you can all have a look at some of these. And I can see loads in the chat box as well. I don't know how you save text on meetings, but I know with Google Hangouts you can save like the text. So, Anne, I don't know if
I'll have a go at that. Yeah, I'll have a look.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. So I've got the agenda on my phone, and then everyone's on my computer. Does anyone have anything else? Sorry, let me just make sure nobody's unmiked or put their hand up, and I haven't missed anything. Anybody wants to say anything around that? No. And Shahid, I've just seen you've joined us as well. Welcome. We hope you're all well, and welcome to our meeting. Item 3F. And send out Sacre login details. You did that, Anne. I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
And finally, 3G, members to produce ideas on how Sacre can show support for action to tackle climate change, which I think is something Michael brought up at the last meeting. Beth?
Yeah. Sorry.
You're much better at this than I am, because we were talking before the meeting, and Anne is probably the local expert on this.
I wouldn't say that, but Michael was saying, what could the Sacre do to sort of support support the not support climate change, but actually do something about it. And I suggested, I think I emailed everyone and suggested that we could there's a group of lawyers who are trying to make ecocide a crime, and you can actually, as an individual or as a group, you can actually say that you support them, and they send you a certificate, and then they know they've got the organisation's support. And I did send round the link to the website, and several people said yes, they'd be quite happy to do that. But I think it's something I need to know, that everyone in the Sacre is happy to do that. And I can send the link around again if necessary, if people have forgotten, because it was quite a while ago now.
Can I just, can I put everyone on the spot a little bit, just because I find there's so many emails. I don't know if your inbox is like mine at the moment, but I'm getting about 200 Google Classroom emails a day. If anybody has any objection, could you please just let me know at some point within the meeting or at the end of the meeting, because I just don't want it to keep going on and on and on, if that makes sense. Yeah. If anybody does have any objections, please let me know. If you don't, if I don't hear anything by tomorrow, then Anne and I will assume that nobody has any objections to us supporting that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Can I have somebody just propose, I hope you had an opportunity to read the minutes, somebody just propose that they are a true account of our last meeting? Thank you, Beth. Can I have somebody to second it? Thank you, Linda. So the minutes are approved from last meeting. So moving on to item 4, development plan and budget plan. Angela, I'm going to hand over to you now.
Thank you, Stephen. Would we be able to put the development plan as a document on the screen?
Yes, I said that I could share that, so I'm going to attempt, if the technology will allow. I'm going to see if I can share. Here we go. Can everyone see the development plan on your screen now?
Yes, I can.
Right.
So really just to talk through some of the highlights on the development plan. So there are 3 main things, rather than talking you through the whole document. But of course, if anybody has any questions or any comments that they wish to raise in relation to this document on any of the actions or items on here, then please let me know, and we can discuss those during the meeting. I think Anne, first of all, was going to give us a membership update, because of course that's our first action to make sure that we've got a full membership for the Sacre. So if I can hand over to Anne for that, if she's okay with that.
I can. Sorry to keep you waiting, folks.
Anne, you could just talk us through it if it's easier.
Yeah, I need to look at it to remember though. I know there's two vacancies in Group A.
So we have a vacancy for a Buddhist, I think.
Yes, and then there's another vacancy in Group A as well, which we thought maybe if, we haven't got a Roman Catholic, for example.
We could have, from a different...
So it can be any Christian religion, can't it? But
yeah. Right. I'm still not. I've put it on my desktop and I still can't see it. Sorry. Okay. I shall just tell you. So we've got 2 vacancies in Group A. We're all right in Group B, which is Church of England. And then we've got 2 vacancies in Group C, which is teachers, teaching unions and educationalists. So we could do with, we've got Stephen, who's the chair and is also a secondary RS teacher. Louisa Gurney and Philippa Chan are sharing the role, and Louisa's primary head teacher, but she's unwell tonight, so she's not with us. Julie is a primary teacher, and Michael Freeman is representing the new teaching union, but there's 2 vacancies there as well. And then we've got a lecture for Reading University for their RS teachers, and also plug the Sacre. So a couple of them were potentially interested. So I'll chase those up. Right. Okay.
We can advertise in Education News for teachers who are interested, and also approach the Secondary Federation and the Primary Head Teachers Association as well.
Yeah. So I've actually managed to. I've saved it on my desktop and it still doesn't show when I go to share it, so I don't know why that's done that. But yes, anyway, so that's Angela. That's the membership. I can email the document around to everybody. The list of groups and who's in them at the moment.
That could be useful, as long as there's no confidential data on that, but it could be useful to include in the minutes, maybe, Anne. And
no, it's just the same as what's at the back of the Constitution. Okay. It's just the separate groups. It's not email addresses or anything like that. It's just names and who they're representing. Well,
if you wouldn't mind maybe sending that with the minutes, and then what we can do, if anybody does know, say for example, a Buddhist or anybody springs to mind, then we can think, we know where we've got vacancy, and also. Emily, that'd be a good idea to advertise in the Education News for Sacre, and I'll also chase up the NQTs that I had a conversation with a few weeks ago.
Okay, so is it back to Angela then?
I think so. So the other two main points for this year's development plan are the Federation support for secondary schools, which we run biannually, and that will be set to go ahead this year, hopefully face to face. But if needs be, then we can start making arrangements and having discussions about how that might take place, possibly online. And the other main point of development then would be our expansion in training to offer some additional provision to secondary teachers. There was a questionnaire sent out to secondary teachers, and the strong feeling was that the best form of support that we could offer them as Sacre was some form of twilight training, and that it should be focused around developing techniques and pupil engagement and helping people progress at GCSE level for secondary. So that was set to go ahead on the 17th of June. However, with the situation with the pandemic, that hasn't been possible, but we've got some tentative dates planned in November, and liaising with schools to see if that can be made possible. Again, that might need to be provision online. So I think those are the main points. So I don't know if anybody has got any questions about any of the other actions that are on the development plan at all.
My only question, Angela, was around the support when they went around GCSE.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I'm thinking about that could be quite difficult. The heavens have just opened here. Sorry, I just got distracted, like it's absolutely tipping it down. The only thing I think could be difficult because secondary schools might be doing different exam boards and maybe slightly different techniques. Yeah. So that's maybe the only thing that we just need to be a little bit mindful of. But I think it's good that secondary schools are finally engaging and they're finally giving us some feedback on what they want from us. So well done to you guys for getting them engaged.
Yeah, I've thought very carefully about the kind of training that we can offer for GCSE, and in my day job, it's something that I've provided for teachers in lots of different areas of the country, and there are some sort of common threads, common themes, common pitfalls across the GCSE specifications. Common techniques to develop and so on, and within an hour and a half twilight, I think that we could provide something really good for them.
Okay. Any other questions? Anyone else?
Stephen, I could through the budget update if you like.
Yes, in a second, that's all right. And then I assume, Angela, with all of these, that if Sacre members are available, you're more than happy for them to attend.
Yes, absolutely. They'd be very welcome.
Thank you. Okay, yes. Are there any other questions? Sorry, before we move on to the budget update, I'll just look at everyone's mics because I can't see hands. Okay, so yeah, Emily, if you wouldn't mind giving everyone a budget update, that'd be grand. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, I was trying to share the agenda pack again, but for some reason it's not letting me do that. But I know hopefully everyone's seen the budget plan that I've put in the agenda pack. And our budget allocation is the same this year as it's been in the last few years. So we've got £6,800. And there's a few things that I just put in blue when I sent out the budget document that I wasn't quite sure about. Because, for example, some of the costs depend on things like whether we share our subject leader training with another local authority, and we can therefore split the costs. I wasn't sure how much the webcasting of this meeting is going to cost. We have to pay the IT support for that, but I now know that that's going to be around about £60 or £70. But obviously we're saving on travel expenses. We've had some things cancelled this year because of the pandemic. So the Sacre conference, for example, that Angela and a member would usually go to has been at least postponed for now. So we're saving money on that. But basically the budget plan obviously is in line with the development plan, and everything in the development plan is costed. And I've assumed that we're going to be giving £900 to the Sacre's hub again, although I'm not sure about that. But if we do, we've pretty much allocated our whole budget. We've got about £350 not yet allocated. I should say I've been a bit generous in some things. So, for example, Angela's travel expenses I've probably overestimated, particularly if we carry on with working virtually for a while longer. I've allocated £250 to be given to the Secondary Federation for the RE programme on the inset day, but we could potentially add a bit more to that if we want to use some of that spare approximately 350 that we've got. So I don't know if anyone wants to make any comment or suggestions about the budget plan.
I've just got a couple of quick questions, Emily. Will the local authority, I mean, we don't know how the pandemic's going to, how it's going to go. Will they claw back money, do you think, at the end of next financial year if we haven't spent for whatever reason?
So I can see that Sal's raised his hand, so perhaps he would be better to answer that question.
I think given the circumstances, I think we're probably unlikely to look to claw back. You know, but because I think that what we want to do, especially given our conversations earlier, is think about actually, as well as some of the saving that you're making by virtue of things not happening as a result of COVID-19, there may be other things that have caused additional expense as a result of COVID-19. So we wanted to take all of those into account as well. Okay, thank you. Catherine, I think with your hand up.
No, it was exactly the same question as you, Stephen, actually. Yeah. I mean, I just, the only thing I'm thinking of is there any way to kind of show support to schools? So, for instance, did schools, it's a bit of a toughie one, I guess, lose money in any way through various RE trips being cancelled, even if it was I don't know if it can be done, but even as a small gesture of support to encourage them to reinvest in places of worship next year? I know some schools have paid up front for transport and stuff that just got lost. I'm not saying we pay all the money at all, but or some way of supporting, I don't know, the things we're talking about, collective worship, places, visiting places of worship, to encourage once things get back to normal, who knows when that is, are we able to perhaps earmark a bit to say we can support you in making a visit? I don't know. It's all a bit unknown, so it's a bit messy.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's unknown and it's messy. And I think the idea, I really like the idea in principle. I'm not sure how much, if we've only got £300 left, say, for example, how far that would go with places of worship. But I think there's definitely mileage and possibly investigating. I don't know, maybe like some kind of, and this is just me literally just thinking off the top of my head, like some kind of reward trip that maybe we open up to primary schools and we sort of say, look, we're doing some kind of Woking-wide competition, the children write about something, I don't know, some kind of reflection, and then as a local authority we put on a day trip for them. I don't know, but yeah, that's just me thinking very quickly.
Or even, are there any kind of, again, it's probably cost way more than, but, you know, are there sort of artifacts, resources? You know, it's the one thing, RE doesn't always get the money in schools, to show some sort of support, I think, really. Yeah, don't know.
I think, and I don't know if it's moved, but the Bracknell Artefact Library, I think they have allowed Wokingham schools to access it, and they're just saying Wokingham schools aren't accessing it. I don't know if they're still at East Hampstead or if they have moved, because we have spoken about doing artefact boxes before years ago, and then I think we made the decision that it wasn't particularly cost effective. If you think, Emily, I don't know how many primary schools there are in Wokingham.
About 50 odd.
Okay.
40 something.
54.
I can see that Sal's got his hand raised, Stephen, so.
Okay, Sal.
Well, primaries is 54.
Yeah.
But in response to Christine's question, I mean, in terms of any costs that schools have incurred and then not been able to recoup in relation to COVID-19, I know that there's the national DFE fund that schools could apply to in order to recoup some of that. And there is a very small fund as well within the local authority that might be able to support where the DFE fund can't, so that schools aren't financially disadvantaged as a result of the COVID-19 arrangements, which again means that there might be, if those routes are successful, it might be that there are resources that can be re-put into the types of activity that you're discussing.
I wonder again, and this is just me again, just thinking off the top of my head, given the conversations we've had this evening about emotional well-being for young people, if there is a little bit of money aside, teachers possibly can bid and we can train up a few teachers on almost being like emotional counsellors or well-being counsellors. I mean, I don't know how we'd go about doing that, but just if we could get somebody to provide that, if they run it for, I don't know, 10, 15 teachers, that's 10, 15 teachers within the local authority that possibly could provide support. I don't know, that's just, again, just me thinking very quickly on a Monday evening.
If I may, again, it's Sal here. I know that nationally there is a number of initiatives where they're looking at doing precisely that, starting to look at how they might support schools to develop greater counselling within the school's environment, and how nationally that might be resourced. So I think that whatever Sacre wants to do is I would suggest that we keep an eye on what's going on nationally as well, so that you don't end up duplicating, meaning that you can actually get the maximum from the resources that you have available.
Okay, I think that's a fair point, sort of keep an eye on the national picture. Just on the back of what Emily was saying about the hub, and Beth, jump in if I misunderstood something when we've had hub meetings. We will continue to support the hub moving forward. I think we've worked so hard with the other local authorities in Berkshire. Hang on a second, it's Kevin, sorry I can't hear. We've worked so hard, over these last few over these last few years, that we don't want that. We don't want to lose that, especially with the current project that Anne's doing at the moment, and I'll come back to that shortly. So unless anyone has any major objections and they don't feel we should support the hub, then that money will be used to continue to support the hub. Okay. Are there any other questions on the budget? No, don't see any others. Angela, was there anything else you wanted to add on the development plan or budget?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. So if we move on to item 5, just feedback from teacher networks and training opportunities. So Angela, it's over to you again.
Well, I've spoken a little bit about the secondary training that's going to be focused on GCSE. So I'm going to speak a little bit more about the primary network meetings. So we have one primary network meeting per term, and this year we've only managed to have the autumn and the spring term. We got in there early with the spring term in February, so we managed to be able to get that one in. They're usually very well attended. We had 15 attendees for the autumn meeting, and we looked at assessment in primary RE. Very well received. In the spring meeting, quite ominously actually, there were only 6 people who turned up for that one, and the word was that there was a virus going around. So we did some work on planning and preparing for Ofsted, and a good practice around the 3 I's and a deep dive into RE. There were lots of materials shared, and the teachers were pleased with what was provided there. So the summer network was due to take place on the 23rd. Obviously, that's not going to be taking place as planned. In lieu of that, teachers have been provided with a pack that will help to support distance learning and socially distanced learning within the classroom. Some of the materials in that pack are about a visit to a virtual visit to a place of worship and so on. So hopefully they will find those materials useful and helpful for their practice. In at the beginning of July, we are going to have an informal meeting online just to discuss the contents of the pack and share ideas around it. And also I will now bring up some of the aspects that we were talking about around collective worship earlier on in the meeting. So the primary network is going really well. At the moment, teachers are happy to attend All Saints, and you know, there is no reason why that can't change, and we can go to another venue if teachers prefer. We have it's very democratic. Teachers have a vote at the end of the meetings, but of course it might be the case that for a number of months the meetings will need to take place online.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Either hand up, which Emily will help me out with hands up, or Melisha and Mike, and I can see that. No. Thank you, Angela. Item 6, national updates relating to education and RE. Angela, it's you again.
Yeah, so I've put together quite a few updates, national and local, which hopefully you've had a chance to have a look at. So I won't talk through every single thing in that document, but just go over some of the highlights. So there is a new HMI lead for RE, Dr. Richard Cure. And he was just very recently appointed, and already he's been in talks with quite a lot of the subject associations for RE, really keen to move things forward with the subject. So there is a project going on with Claire Clinton, who is an RE advisor, I believe around the London area actually, and it's around the Commission on RE recommendation 8, which relates to Sacre. I've asked Claire for some more details on this, and I'm still waiting to have something back from her. Really, I just wanted to open up a discussion about whether Wokingham Sacre would like to express an interest in being part of the pilot project. Do we feel that we need some more details? It's over 2 years working with the University of Oxford, and it is going to involve some action research and also looking at Sacre support and Sacre budgets and so on. So I'm happy to take any comments from members relating to that particular item. As I say, the only information that I have on that is what's in the document at the moment, so there's not much there to go on, but I'm happy to circulate via Anne or Emily some more information when that becomes available from Claire.
And this is just my initial thoughts, just immediately from what I've read. I think we should, as a Sacre, sign up and be a pilot. I think we're such an active Sacre, in my opinion. I think we provide amazing stuff for the young people in Wokingham, and what we have accomplished as a group over the last 5-6 years has been nothing short of, in my mind, amazing. If you think the Crossing the Bridges project, working on sort of the video project at the moment, the new locally agreed syllabus, coming together with 5 other local authorities, and actually it's working quite well. I personally think we should be. I don't know if anybody else has any other comments or thoughts. Please just raise your hand or release your mic, and please do jump in.
Sorry.
I don't see anyone's mic released. And Emily, I don't know if you've seen any hands.
No, I think all I would say, Stephen, is I had a little discussion about Angela with this, and as Angela says, she's trying to find out some more information about what it would involve. Mm-hmm. And I totally agree with you that I think anything we can do that's to sort of highlight and showcase the work that we do in Wokingham Sacre is fantastic. The only sort of caution or concern I might have is about what exactly is involved and what time commitment is involved and who would need to do that. And so, of course, if it involved Angela's time, we'd need to factor that into our budget. It could be something that doesn't involve that kind of commitment, and that, so it might not be an issue. But I think it's difficult to obviously at this stage say whether we can actually commit to it without knowing what's involved. And it might involve Sacre members, for example, volunteering to do some things. So I think people would probably need to know exactly what's involved, I guess.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think once you have that bit more information and we know what is required of us, then if it's something we feel we could do, then I definitely agree. I think we should showcase what the amazing stuff that we've done and really raise the profile of Wokingham sort of Sacre. But agreed, I think if we get a bit more information, then we can go from there. Angela?
Okay. So the next part of the document is just some events and CPD opportunities for teachers. So there is a national leadership programme, and I think we are going to circulate some of this information to the teachers. There's an open university course on religious literacy, and also very informally Natre run an RE chat on the Twitter platform where teachers meet usually Monday evenings, and they can share ideas and best practice, and quite a lot has come out of it in terms of teachers sharing ideas for resources and so on. So that could be something that we encourage teachers to participate in. There's some research going on with Cullen St Gabriel's, looking at teaching RE in England and Wales, so opportunities for teachers to become involved in some active research. I mentioned home learning packs, and Natre are making sure that teachers have things available that they can use from a variety of different sources, not just their own materials, but from across a wide breadth of different providers, and that's developing every day, literally. So there are a couple of links there that teachers can follow to get hold of some of those resources, and they are evolving into more kind of social distance in the classroom, outdoor learning resources, and as I say, they are being kept up to date and very, very useful for teachers. Also, the Council for Subject Associations are putting things together. BBC Bite Size have daily lessons and developing resources, and there will be some resources for collective worship from the BBC as well. They will be hot off the press soon. So in terms of then classroom resources, there's a lot of innovative stuff going on there. We've got things from the Interfaith Network and again from BBC Bite Size, and I just wanted to just put in the updates there that the GCSEs obviously will be awarded differently this year, as well as AS and A level, and the information on that is made clear on the link that is provided, and any changes will be reflected there. So students in year 11 and year 13 will have their fair grade awarded, and students in year 10 and 12 will be sitting their exams as usual. But there are hopefully in 2021, but there are a number of teachers unions and other voices who are trying to think about a way forward in view of the fact that students have lost a big chunk of their contact time with teachers and so on. So that link will keep you posted. Trainee teachers for RE, it's looking very, very healthy. 40% of new PGCE students have become religious education teachers, and there's also funding for subject knowledge and enhancement courses for those who haven't done an RE degree or a degree in theology. That's giving lots of people an opportunity to start embark upon a career in teaching RE. Wales is becoming increasingly divergent from England. You may have heard that the Welsh Minister for Education has decided to rename RE Religion, Values and Ethics, and remove the right of withdrawal. However, it's not quite as simple as just removing the right of withdrawal, and there is quite a complex consultation. People in England can respond to that consultation as well, about how that is going to work in practice. I've given you updates on the primary network and secondary CPD. With regard to Pan Berkshire Hub, we are still doing really well, but delayed with the Real People, Real Faith West Hill project. The work is still continuing, but it looks like we're going to be not celebrating the end of that project until around this time next year, unfortunately, but still keeping going with that. The Inspiring RE conference, Milton Keynes, tentative date for that would be the 14th of October. May have to be moved again, hopefully not, but it might have to be an online provision. So they're the local and national updates. So any questions or comments, happy to respond to.
Lisa's got her hand up. You're muted, Lisa.
Yeah, sorry, help if I undo my camera. I mean my microphone. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, question about the 40% of new PGC students that become RE teachers, but who graduated in other humanities. Mm-hmm. So then presumably they're not actually RE specialists. So is that still a good thing?
It depends on how somebody looks at it, really. If they've had a good quality subject knowledge enhancement course and they're able to prove their competency and their skills to teach RE. Of course, when they qualify and they've done a PGCE in religious education, religious studies, then they will effectively be specialist RE teachers.
So do you mean that they still did an RE PGCE?
They can.
So the PGCE was in RE.
The PGCE will be with an RE specialism.
Right. Sorry, I was misunderstanding that because I thought you meant it had a history, philosophy, or sociology specialism with the PGCE.
Right. Yeah. If they've done, say, a history degree, or maybe an English literature degree, or something of that nature, and then they decide they want to teach RE, they can do a subject knowledge enhancement course. and then do a PGCE that will qualify them as a specialist religious education teacher.
Yeah, so they actually have done a first subject sort of
yeah,
RE PGCE.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine then. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that.
Are there any other questions? Any other mics? No. Andrew, have you got anything else on any national updates or, Sacre updates?
No, I think that's it for the time being. There were some additional resources that came from Sacre this afternoon, actually, and I've sent those on to Anne and Emily to distribute to teachers, and I'm sure that Anne will be willing to share them with Sacre members as well.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Just on the back of some of what Angela was saying in terms of the hub and the project that's been going on there, so that a lot of that work has been shared with Angela, Beth and myself, and I think the videos are of really good quality, and I look forward to using them in my classroom when we get them. It's just a shame that COVID's had different ideas and decided to delay that project, but I think it will be a really powerful resource for teachers and young people. So yeah, that's quite exciting. And like I said, I do think we continue to work with the hub, and I know lots of the other hubs. Lots of the other Sacres, they're all really keen. I think our only slight concern is Reading, and them having funding, but we'll have to just we'll have to wait and see with that one. Next item on the agenda is item 8. So it's dates for the next meeting. It's currently Monday, the 9th of November.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a way away. If there are issues with that date, like we have done previously, we can try and move things around. But just please do bear in mind that we like to keep it after the half term, because Beth and myself will attend the hub meeting beforehand. And again, who knows what COVID's going to do? It could very well be another virtual meeting. Just see if anyone has any. Just looking if there's any issues with that. If there are concerns with the date, then please let us know. But if we just say provisionally that's the date, and do we want to set dates for the spring term and the summer term while we're here, or?
I can only do it if I've got all the future all the school dates, and also I've got to check with council meetings as well, so that we don't lose our councillors to their meetings. So
with you then as an action, and if it's an ongoing action, that's totally fine, because I know you've obviously got to look at various different diaries and calendars.
Yeah, that's okay, but I'll put that as a to-do like shortly, and then I'll sort of let you know provisional dates. Okay. I mean, it usually turns out okay just after half term, but there's a couple of times I've sort of missed a sort of faith event as well, as Shira will know, so so I need to do a lot of sort of cross-referencing first.
Okay, so if we leave that in your capable hands, have a look.
Yeah.
Final thing, there's just any other business, and I'm just going to go, if anybody does have any other business, I've got one item. If you just either pop your hand up or you release your mic and just share with the group. I don't see any, and Emily, I don't know if you've had any hands ping up on your screen. Just one, Anne suggested is there any way as a Sacre that we could, and again, thinking about with all the young people and like everything they're going through at the moment, and everything that's in the news in the moment, anything we can just do with supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. I don't know if anybody.
I think it was actually Anju's suggestion, but I think she lost contact.
Andrew, I don't know if you want to say any more, or if there's any.
Naturally, have put out a statement on Black Lives Matter that could be shared with teachers, and also in the process of developing some resources that could be shared with teachers in Wokingham.
Okay.
I don't know whether you're hearing me, but I am back online.
Sorry?
Angie, you broke up there.
Line.
Oh, we can just about hear you. Do you want to repeat that?
Yeah, Andrew, I'm back online.
All right.
I have to come through.
Yeah, we were just talking about your suggestion about.
Right.
Yeah,
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I think that, as a Sacre, and we were talking about collective worship and things, maybe this is something that we need to also consider is in collective worship, how do we sort of involve all race, all religions in there? I know the collective worship is just for Christianity, but I think we need to be doing something.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think definitely, Angela, when you have those resources, if you wouldn't mind sharing them. David, I'll come to you in a second. I can see you've got a question. I'm also in the process of writing a scheme of work as well that I don't mind sharing on looking at Black history and Black culture, but from a very positive perspective. So we're looking at, say, for example, one lesson we're looking at explorers. We're looking at astronauts, for example, people who've gone to like the North Pole. The next lesson we're currently designing at the moment is around like things like fashion designers and engineers. And the third lesson is around creating. So it's looking at musicians, film, and then I think the fourth lesson is around literature, so looking at people like Maya Angelou and poets. So I don't mind sharing that as well, which can be shared out as well. David, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I was just thinking about Black Lives Matter, and we've said it should be shared with teachers, but I think it's the pupils as well who are almost as important, if not more important. And therefore, I think something needs to go out to schools from Sacre about the positiveness of this. And I mean, if NACRE have done it, I'm not sure what they say in their press release, but at least that would be something. But we need to send something out to schools in a positive fashion so that they can see that we are behind Black Lives Matters and not just sitting on the fence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Stephen Shearer would like to say something as well.
Oh, Shearer, thank you, Emily.
Yeah, my only concern is I think we need to be very careful not for this to get political. I mean, Black Lives Matter in the UK, the organisation on their platform is abolishing capitalism. So there already is very heavy peer pressure on children to conform politically to their peers. I know this because my kids have spoken about it. And you don't want to have a situation where there's a kind of pressure on kids to sort of back a political position. It's a bit that's really problematic. I have real qualms. Black Lives Matter has had a mixed relationship with the Jewish community in the States. It's a sort of checkered history. So just want to be very careful. But what I do think would be really positive is if you can open up a conversation about experiences of prejudice that children may have had, so they feel free to share those, because a lot of kids don't even know racism exists, or they don't know anti-Semitism exists, they don't know that Muslim hatred exists. They're oblivious to it, particularly if they're sort of, in the majority ethnic group in the country. And so to encourage that sort of sharing, the kids, to help them learn from each other, and increase empathy. But that sounds more like a PSHE thing. That would be really positive, but be very careful, scrupulously keep away from the politics of it, because Black Lives Matter UK has been infiltrated by a lot of extreme left-wing people. It's very scary, to be honest. Even if a lot of the emotions are very positive, it's got to be just kind of careful there. So that's how I would feel about that.
Thank you for sharing that. And I don't think for a second, if we do put something out, we would put any kind of endorsement of like saying, go to like this kind of website. I think it would literally just be maybe sort of saying, with this movement, there are some resources coming, and possibly mentioning about just reviewing your schemes of work around prejudice and discrimination. And therefore highlighting things like anti-Semitism, Islamophobia as well, and just make it a bit more encompassing.
Emily's got a hand up.
Yeah, well, I'll let Philip would like to speak, so I'll let him talk first.
Oh, thanks. I think Stephen really got to what I wanted to say at the end, but just to reinforce, I think we're not talking about endorsing or promoting the Black Lives Matter as a campaign group, are we? I think we're emphasising the wrongness of discrimination on any of these grounds, and by trying to identify in particular positive black role models from parts of the curriculum where they perhaps haven't been as prominent as they might be. So I think Shira's point is very helpful to put that alongside resources about anti-Semitism and other kinds of discrimination on the grounds of race or religion. I think that in that connection, if there were examples of organisations that brought together people of different colours and religions in shared endeavours, that's a really positive kind of thing to put across, rather than just saying racism is bad or anti-Semitism is bad, to reinforce that by saying, and here are organisations where, for example, Jews and Christians or Christians and Muslims or people of different colours have worked together on something. I think reinforcing positive role models is really good as well. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing, Emily.
Stephen, Shahid and Beth have both got their hands raised.
Shahid, should we come to you?
Hi, Stephen. Actually, a slightly different point regarding the resources. We know a lot of the young people learn nowadays through the social media. And I was just wondering whether all the material we have available, especially on the YouTube, whether Sacre can have a YouTube channel where everything can be actually allocated in that space. And that could be a good resource, not only for students, but also the teachers as well. Because at the moment, you look for resources, obviously they're scattered in some cases, but if they were in one place for the students and the staff as well, I thought that could be a very valuable resource to tap on.
At the last hub meeting, we spoke about having a shared Google Drive where, because obviously Google's free, so we wouldn't have to pay for it, where we would be able to upload resources and teachers have access to it. So that's definitely something we could upload resources potentially to that Google Drive, and someone from the hub, he's taking a lead on that. And I think the idea of a YouTube channel is a good idea. My only smaller is how would we manage it?
Yeah, we can discuss about how the managing side. I thought if the people are of the view that that is something which is worth considering or exploring, then I mean it's not a huge cost to that. I understand it can be done, but also it could be some of the resources could be Sacre created, or if some other Sacres, but also it can be some material which is available in the public domain as well.
Okay.
The whole idea being that putting it all together, and that is much more obviously time saving for everyone.
Can you leave that with Beth and myself, and we will take that to the hub at the next hub meeting, which we're planning on having one before the end of term, and just sort of make a suggestion that maybe if we have like a hub-wide YouTube, because then it's not all on Wokingham, at least then we can potentially share out some of the workload with the other Sacres across Berkshire.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, thank you. Beth?
I would just wondered if the authority were thinking of doing anything on Black Lives Matter with school. I wouldn't want to tread on Sal's toes if they've got something planned and something going out to heads or governors about it.
Okay, so our chief executive has made a statement in respect of Black Lives Matter. I have shared with head teachers some words in one of my daily updates in respect of making sure that that they're aware of how they may be wanting to communicate with their pupils and staff, and starting a dialogue where it's appropriate to do so, following the events recently, and on the sort of response to the ongoing events. So yes, I have shared something with all head teachers across the borough, and absolutely I don't think anybody would be treading on my toes by adding their support to any message that gives some hope and some support to children and young people that may be thinking that this is me, this is my identity at this particular moment in time.
If I could just add, Stephen, just very briefly to what Sal's just said, I've also started compiling a list of materials for schools with a list of anti-racism materials, such as books that particularly with younger children, teachers can use, and materials actually more specifically about the recent protests and the George Floyd incident for older children. And I've published that in Education News, and I intend to add to that as I find more materials and sources of support for schools. So I think there's various things going on, but as Sal said, anything the Sacre wanted to add, I'm sure would be welcomed. So
thank you.
Sorry, just to say, Stephen, Philip indicated that he wanted to speak as well.
Philip.
I did speak.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Beth's got a hand up again.
I thought you had another thing you wanted to say.
Oh, sorry, no, I didn't mean to.
Oh, well, Beth's got a hand up again.
Well, you've frozen Beth slightly.
Oh.
Beth? She did message me to say her correct connection's not particularly good.
Right. Well, Shahid has put his hand up again.
Shahid?
No, actually, I haven't. I don't know.
They've just
They haven't come down. Okay.
You've just got sticky hands.
I'll lower my hand.
So just as a final action then, Anne, for the minutes, if anybody does have anything that they're willing to share, maybe if that goes via Emily, and then Emily can possibly on the Education News if anybody has any sort of ideas of things. I will investigate with Beth at the next hub regarding sharing some of the resources we're talking about on things like YouTube or like on a Google Drive that teachers have access to. And finally, as Angela said, once we have the resources from NatWay, then we can send that out to our colleagues as well, just to try and support all of this. Does anybody have any other business before we finish for this evening? No. Thank you everyone for your time, and also thank you for all your efforts this year. A bizarre year, like in 13 years into teaching, I've never known anything like this, but I think what we, as I said earlier, what we continue to do and provide for the young people in Wokingham, I think is nothing short of amazing, and what we have achieved in the last few years as a Sacre has been amazing. And I think you're all silent heroes. I don't think they all know, our young people and our parents and our teachers, that actually it's you as an organisation that do and endorse all these amazing things. But on that note, look after yourselves, take care, and if you have any questions or anything, just ping Emily and Beth or myself an email, and enjoy the rest of your Monday evening. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.